is Brandon Bias from TutorialCheckit.com, here with yet another exciting Tutorial Tuesday. Today we're going to go over some pretty useful tips and tricks and all that stuff. We're going to go over, very briefly, some skin cleanup, and what we're going to be focusing on mainly is skin smoothing, just to smooth over skin and make it look nice and clean. And just to top it off, maybe add some contrasting and brighten up the eyes in whatever picture we're working on. So overall, we're going to be getting a pretty nice little effect. And I'm just going to try and keep this under 10 minutes or something along those lines, just to keep things short, sweet, and to the point. In any case, just go ahead and open up whatever picture it is that you are wanting to edit and add the skin smoothing and all that stuff to. And if there happens to be a lock on it and it says background, just give your layer a double click and name it original. And with your original layer selected, go ahead and duplicate it with Control J or Command J to make a copy of it. That way we've just got this little backup just in case we end up screwing up later on. And so we're just going to rename this layer Cleanup because we are going to use it to clean up our acne and all that other stuff. And we're just going to keep this simple. We'll go over to our spot healing brush over here on our left side. And then if you go down to this little drop down arrow right here, give that a click and make sure your hardness is down to 85% just to have a little bit of softness around the edges and all that stuff. And so I'm just going to zoom in using my scroll wheel, which is an option I enabled in the options of Photoshop. And if you use your left and right brackets, you can size up or size down your brush. And so just make it roughly the size of whatever acne you're trying to get rid of and give that a click, and that should clean it up for you. If it doesn't look that great, don't worry about it. The skin smoothing is going to smooth it out anyway. So just go through and just do some clicks on some things that you don't really want to see on your skin while sizing your brush and all of that stuff. And if you're zoomed in, you can use the space bar to click and drag around the canvas. That way you can navigate cleanly and all that other stuff. So just go through and get rid of any of these spots or little things of acne that you are not going to want to see. Okay, so once you've used your spot healing brush to just do a quick little cleanup around the acne and blemishes and stuff like that, you can do a little bit of a before and after to see whether or not you actually like that. And if you do, go ahead and duplicate the cleanup layer by hitting Control J or Command J if you are on a Mac. And we're just going to rename this layer Smooth or Smooth Skin, you know, whatever you want. And what we're going to do to this is going to seem a little bit bizarre, but just follow along and it will look pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and invert this layer by hitting Control I or Command I, and then we're going to change the blend mode to Vivid Light. Yes, I know it looks weird, don't worry about it, it's all good. And we're just going to zoom in just a little bit on the face just so we can see what's going on. If there's a bunch of weird colors and stuff, don't really worry about it. And we're going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and what the Gaussian Blur is going to do is determine how much texture you're actually going to see in your skin. So the more blur that you have, the more texture you're going to see. The less blur you have, the less texture, you know, and vice versa. So what you're going to want to do is just kind of click through the radius just to see what it is that you like. And I'm thinking somewhere around 7 is actually looking pretty good, because over here in my cheek I can see some of the texture. And so just with that in mind, I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK with a radius of 7.8. Yes, I've still got like random blue splotches and all that, but that's okay because that's not going to show up later. And now we're going to go up to Filter, Other, High Pass. And the high pass filter is just going to determine how smooth your skin is actually going to look. So when you amp up the radius on the high pass filter, you're going to slowly see your skin just kind of start smoothing. But when you get to a certain point, you're going to see this kind of ghosting effect going on. You're going to get weird colors and things of that sort. And when you get to that, you probably want to go back down to something that looks a little bit more realistic yet still really smooth. So something for me is probably more around the 13 pixels radius. Just kind of get something that looks pretty nice to you, and you'll hit OK, and I'll zoom back out just to see how it's looking. but since everything is getting that smoothing look, it kind of looks a little unrealistic. So what we're going to do is go up to Layer, Layer Mask, Hide All, and that's going to hide everything on this layer. And since that's a little counterproductive, since we want to see our smooth skin, we're just going to swap over to our brush tool with the letter B, and we'll make sure that the hardness is all the way down to 0%, and we'll maybe amp up the size a little bit so it's a little bit more, there we go, a little bit better size there. And so what we're going to do is make sure that our foreground color is set to white rather than black, and all we're going to do is paint in white on this layer mask right that you can see over here. We've got a layer mask going that's filled with black. Anyway, we're just going to go ahead and paint in white on areas that we want to see our smooth skin. For example, like here in the cheeks, maybe down into the neck, and down here closer to the neck chest area. And my brush is a little too big, so I'll size it down with the left bracket and paint in more right here around my fingers, because I don't want to get my fingers in, I just want my face to be smooth. And so I'll go ahead and get maybe the tip of the nose, the bridge, under the eyes over here, more into the cheeks, maybe right there under the nose. And something that you want to avoid is getting right here on the nostril, because that usually ends up really weird. So avoid getting on the nostril because it's most likely just gonna look bizarre. And then, so I'm just going to continue up the bridge of the nose into the forehead and just keep painting white into this area right here. And so that's looking pretty good right there. You might want to get into the roots of the hair to kind of smooth out the effect. And then I'll just finish off with that temple right there. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and size up the brush and get into the hair up here because I kind of like how that was looking. So that looks pretty good right there, before and after. Yep, I like how that looks. So turning this on and off, you can kind of see the smooth skin and the not quite so bright hair. And all in all, that looks pretty good. So to finish this off, we'll just go ahead and start adding in some contrasting. So I'm going to go over here to my adjustments layer, and I'm going to bring up the levels, and I'm going to bring in the blacks a little bit, maybe bring in the whites just a touch, and do a little before and after with this icon just to see the effect that we're getting here. And then I'm going to go back and add another adjustments layer right there, and I'll zoom in on my eye, and I'll just pay attention to how my eye is looking as I'm tweaking these right here by bringing in the blacks and bringing in the whites and moving in, or moving over the midtones slider right there just to see what we're getting. And since I don't want this entire picture to be blown out like that, I'm going to go ahead and make sure this is inverted by hitting Control I. That way everything's hidden. And I can just go ahead and do what we did before and paint in white on the areas that we want to see with this adjustment layer here. And I'll go over to this eye and paint in right here as well. And so we'll just continue messing with these just to see what we get, and that looks pretty great right there. So that was a quick look at how you can use a couple different filters and levels and stuff like that to really make your picture a lot more smooth and a lot more contrasted and just overall look really amazing. I hope you learned something new from this. It's an effect that I've been using a lot more in my pictures just because it looks so awesome in the end. You just gotta tweak with it a little bit and get something that you like. And in the end, I just hope you learned something new and had fun with it. So thank you for watching. I will see you next Tuesday.